and welcome to the latest episode of Team Lead Talks. Today I am talking with JR Ruzic, who is actually in San Salvador today, right?
Yep.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your time today.
I'm happy to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, JR, we go a little back to our days at KW in
Yep.
Arlington, Virginia, when we were both maybe starting out in real estate at the same time. But let's go
Yeah.
back to your early days of how your genesis story or how you got started in real estate story. Can you walk us
Oh
through how
man.
that happened?
So, believe it or not, I actually used to be a auto mechanic before I started selling real estate, and I was actually really good at it. I was ASC master technician, Virginia safety and emissions inspector, and everything. And around in the early 2000s, that industry kind of like started changing. By about 2010, it was just really, really hard to like make decent money in it. And by that point, I had bought a house and sold a house.
Hmm.
And I was really intrigued by the process. I really thought it was really cool. Like when I looked at the commission that went to my agent and everything, I was like, she didn't really deserve that, because it was, she was really nice and everything, but like one thing that I learned like really quickly, like she never really taught me how the properties are priced correctly or anything like that
Right.
when we were selling our house.
Yeah.
So our house sat on the market, and then her team leader stepped in and had a conversation with me and my ex-wife and explained to us, showed us the comps and everything. So we lowered the price. Literally, we were on the contract a week later.
Okay.
So, what I mean? So I was really intrigued by that process. And, I was like, I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I was like, maybe I should get into real estate.
Hmm.
And, I went and took my real estate classes at KW in Arlington.
Okay.
I had Ann Wilson and Mitch Curtis as my teachers.
Oh yeah. All right.
Yeah, yeah. So, and when I got my license and everything, I actually, believe it or not, I sold all my tools, everything that I had accumulated over 12 years in automotive industry
So
because
you're all in with
I
this
was
new
all in.
real
It
estate
was,
gig.
I was going to sink or swim.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
really, it was like that.
Cool.
So,
I think that's the way to do it, by the way. You don't
I
want
agree.
to go in with anything,
Yeah,
haphazardly thinking, if this doesn't work, I'll go back to being whatever I was in my last profession, right?
exactly, exactly. I mean, it was just one of those things like I didn't want to have that safety net because,
Right.
I always felt like if you have that safety net, you're not going to give it all you have and everything. And I really wanted to put everything I had into it. So, so that first year I got licensed in May 1st, 2014 is
Hmm.
when my license was active.
Okay.
And I ended up doing, I think I did about $60,000 in GCI that first year. I think I did like 9 transactions,
Cool.
which was pretty decent, and everything. And I
Was this
remember
as a solo agent, JR?
as a solo agent, yeah.
Okay.
My first couple of years, I was a solo agent, and but then I was trying to figure out what's gonna be my niche, where's my business gonna come from, and I remember going to the KW family reunion in 2015 at the beginning of the year, and I went to a breakout session on expireds,
Hmm.
and I was like, you know what? I was like, I think this is something I would do really well. So when we came back, I got a subscription to Land Voice.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We started calling expires, and that was my thing. Like every morning, I was in the office by 8 a.m. on the phones calling expireds. And I remember within 2 weeks of coming back from family reunion, I got my first listing. It was in DC. It was in Eckington.
Awesome.
It had been on the market for 3 months, didn't sell, and everything. Pictures were horrible. It was terribly marketed. The client listened to me on everything. We literally sold that property in less than 12 hours. We had
Awesome.
multiple offers. We ended up like 35 grand over asking, and everything. And I remember looking at that check, that first commission check. I think it was like $13,000, and I had invested like $900 for a subscription to Landlords for a year. And I was like, oh my god, this is it.
Pretty good ROI or return
Yeah,
on investment. JR,
absolutely.
before, just in case if anyone's listening that may be new to real estate, can you
Yeah.
explain the concept of what you mean by expired listings?
Absolutely. So expired listings are listings that have been listed on the market with another agent previously. They sometimes they can be on the market for as little as a couple of weeks. The longest one I had ever had was on the market for 2 years before I took over,
Oh wow.
and everything. Or sometimes the listing expires and everything, or they just things don't go well with their previous agent and everything. So those are the expireds or the canceled or
Okay.
those types of listings. And
Okay. Gotcha. So listings or properties that have been put on the active market
yeah,
by an agent or a brokerage that fail to sell. Right.
exactly,
All right. Cool.
exactly.
Okay.
For one reason or another. I mean, like I would probably say like 90% of the time they were overpriced.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there's every time you look at the listing, you can easily tell why
You have a
why
good inclination of what happened,
yeah.
whether it's no photos or poor photos. Over asking list price is a big tell also.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
yeah. And it's sad. Like I've actually noticed there's so many agents in our industry who are afraid to have those tough conversations with sellers.
Right.
Basically, they're afraid to lose a listing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they'll take a listing at an extremely overpriced listing price. You know what I mean? Not thinking that, hey, by the way, I'm going to be spending my own money out of my own pocket trying to sell this property, which is not going to sell.
Right.
You know what I mean? So one thing that I've had some really good mentors in my industry. Like I said, Ann Wilson was one of my mentors. You know what I mean? I've never been afraid to walk away from a listing
That's
if I
big.
if it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Um, so it was just one of those things where that's pretty much like the core of the expireds. Is like sometimes you really have to be willing to walk away, and you have to be able to have those tough conversations. And I
I think
think,
there's two things there also. Number one, walk away, but number two, have the ability, and this is different at different stages of real estate agents'
yeah,
careers, right? Early on, you might be willing to take one and kind of have those tough conversations or not, and then it just
right,
expires. But not taking a listing that you know in your heart or your gut that's overpriced to begin with, it's tough to do,
yeah,
but it's sometimes necessary. I remember, I mean, I've been guilty of it. Maybe you have too, or very early on, where we would take a listing. I remember we had one down in like Dumfries area,
yeah,
and this was like our second or third listing ever back in 2013, so like a year before you started.
yeah,
But we took it, and we didn't really know what we didn't really know at that point. And
yeah.
the owner was like, I want to get 500 for it. And we didn't realize that he had bought it like 2 months before that for like
Oh,
395, and we're like, yeah, 500 all day long, this is great. So it was almost like a learning curve, lessons learned for us too,
right.
but we took it because we didn't know any better at that point.
I'm
But yeah.
guilty of it too. I mean, I've done it. I remember I had a listing that took in Falls Church, and it was a great property and everything. And normally, the price I listed for, I think, was like 800,000. Like I would have gotten that money no matter what. But what I remember like didn't realize then that property was on a pipe stem, and it was a very narrow pipe stem. It was really hard to get into it, and I did not realize at the time how unattractive that is to the buyers
Yeah.
and everything. And listing didn't sell. I mean, I took it. We've had some interest and everything, and in the end, didn't sell. And the client's really cool. I actually still talk to her today. She never sold the house.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
She's still there, and everything. But yeah, it was like you said, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah, isn't it funny though, over the years you're like, man, we've done a lot of transactions, helped a lot of families, and I really wish I knew what I knew now when I first started. Obviously that's
Oh yeah.
a
Well,
cliche
it's
or
one of those
obvious
things
thing
like,
to say, but it's real.
yeah, I mean, it's easy for us to say now, like, oh yeah, I wish I would have known this or done this or all of that. But the reality of it is, each transaction is different in so many ways.
Right.
And here I am 10 years into it. I'm still running into things that I've never seen before.
Yeah.
I mean, whether they're positive or negative. I mean, I just had one where literally, like, we got under contract, we got closing costs for our buyer and everything. On top of that, we had a full home inspection and everything. And this is like probably 13 days on the market. I did not think I was going to get all this. So we do the home inspection. The biggest thing the property needs is the roof. The roof is leaking on multiple spaces. And so I'm like already in my mind trying to figure out how I'm going to get the credit and everything because we maxed out our credit. Seller comes back and says, "Yeah, I'll put in your roof on it."
Hmm.
Like, and I'm like, okay. Like I totally did not expect it. Like
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was like they didn't argue back or anything. It was like, yeah, we'll do it. Like they did everything we asked them for. You know what I mean? And you just, that's one of the positive things that you run into. You know what I mean? They're not all negatives, but it just 10 years into it, like I see something I haven't seen before.
Well, that's a homeowner on a mission, right? They
Yeah,
didn't want to mess around with potentially, you know,
losing the deal.
delaying or losing the deal. So proactiveness goes a long way, and I'm sure you were very appreciative, and your buyer
Oh
was
yeah.
too when you
Well,
heard that back.
I think what worked for them is that we gave them like a 3 week closing. Like we went under contract right at the end of November, and we're closing on December 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, actually, we just got the appraisal back last night, and my client's already cleared to close, so we could close tomorrow if we wanted to, and everything. But like literally, like I think that they really like the fact that we can close before the end of the year.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're helping them out in some aspects, and they're
Yeah,
also helping you out, which is great. If we can go back, I don't know if that one expired that you just were talking about was
yeah,
your first deal, but I always like to hear, back in 2014 when you closed those 9 deals,
yeah.
how did you get your first ever deal? And can
My
you tell us
first,
the story behind it?
my first ever deal was a client I met in an open house.
So you were
He
hosting an open house,
I was
and
hosting
you
an open house. He
okay,
walked in with his girlfriend, and they didn't like that house at the time, but I had really prepared for the open house, so I knew everything that had sold in the neighborhood, everything that was on the market currently. And
okay,
he had asked me about the house that was literally down the street, and he was like, you know anything about that? I was like, yeah. I was like, the house is actually vacant. I was like, I'd be happy to show it to you after the open house and everything. So he was like, you can do that. I was like, absolutely. So I scheduled the showing. I went through my on the phone and everything, opened everything. I've scheduled the showing. Met him at the house after I closed the open.
yep,
Um, that wasn't a house for them, but we had right then and there we had agreed to meet at a coffee shop the next day so that I can go over his purchase criteria and everything. And he had agreed to work with me right there on the spot
cool,
because I think he was really impressed that I was with my knowledge and everything. Which I remember, everybody always used to ask me. They were like, how do you handle the fact that you don't have so much experience? I was like, it's
right.
confidence. If you appear confident and know, and sound like you know what you're talking about, it's never going to come up. Yeah,
Perception goes a long way, right?
exactly.
So to
Um,
be clear, though, for those wondering how you're at an open house before you even got your first client
yeah.
ever, you hosted someone else's listing, correct?
Yes, it was Tori McKinney's open house.
Okay, yeah,
She had to put it out there. She said we have an open house. Can somebody host it? And I used to like every week. Like I would always be on the lookout to see who needs help with open houses and everything. And I just signed up to do that one, and I got my first buyer that way.
awesome. Yeah, open houses for those kind of thinking because lead gen is all the rage these days, right?
Yeah,
Low inventory, everyone's looking for leads. That is a very inexpensive, almost free way to host someone's open house,
yep,
collect information of the people that you meet, and build your pipeline. And those are your next leads right there. Those are your next prospects, your next clients.
absolutely.
So if you're struggling today to get leads and you don't have capital or you don't that's not kind of your business model, hosting open houses as many as you can every single month. I know some agents hosting 7, 8, 9 in a month, multiple in a
Oh,
day.
easily,
But
easily.
yeah, talk about that strategy and how it worked for you.
I mean, like it's like you said, if you don't have the capital and everything, it is the easiest way to generate leads. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Now that I'm 10 years into it, and and have the capital and have done the things that I've done, like I hate doing open houses. Like
So
I'm gonna put that out there. Like
you didn't
I
have the luxury of hating open houses when you had no
exactly.
money, no clients, no momentum, right?
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't have what I have, like the systems that I have and the pipeline that I have and everything, you bet your ass I'd be out there doing as many open houses as I can. Like
Yep.
I would most definitely not be in El Salvador right now. Like I will tell you that right
Right.
now. But I mean, it is probably the easiest way, and but the mistake that I see a lot of agents make is they don't prepare for these open houses. They just go out there and do them. Like I remember I used to go put out the directional signs the night before the open house and
Yeah.
everything. I would look at the comps. I would know every house that's sold in that neighborhood for the last 6 months. We would I would go and check out like any other houses that were on the market in the area,
Hmm.
so that I can, I would do a preview so that I would be familiar with it. I would arrive to my open house at least an hour or so early so that I can walk through the house. I know where every closet is, where everything is, so that when I'm walking a potential buyer through the house, you know, it looks like I know why I'm there.
Right. Yeah.
So I see a lot of agents don't do that. They just show up to the open house and expect things to happen. Um, but the key word is like you have to prepare. Like doing an open house really means hours and hours on top of work. I mean, I remember Dan and I used to go knock on the doors in the neighborhood, tell people, hey, we're having an open house and everything. And I remember he got listings that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we all used to do that stuff, you know what I mean? So, nowadays, another thing that we do is we sent out mailers for the open house to the neighborhood and,
Right.
things like that. That some of the tools that we have, like, Land Voice also allows me to put in an address on my open house and get phone numbers and addresses for everybody in the neighborhood so
Right.
that we can call them ahead of time and say, hey, we're having an open house. Why don't you stop by? You
Right.
know what I mean? So there's ways of doing it, and like I keep mentioning Land Voice just because Land Voice is so inexpensive. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? A 1 year subscription is $900. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
No
And that's,
brainer. Yeah.
if you split that over 12 months, it's a no brainer. Like a return on investment is tremendous. So, what I mean? But open houses for a new agent starting in the business, whether you're on a team or not, what I mean? It's the easiest, most, what's the word I'm looking for? Um,
Efficient, effective,
and most efficient
best
way
use
of
of your time,
generating
because
business.
you also
Yeah,
don't want to host an open house, not prepare, have no one show up to it, and
yeah,
waste your own personal time. But also, I'd like to get back to your, it sounds like you have a system, or a lot of people call them SOPs, standard operating
yeah,
procedures. In our company, we call it playbooks, etc.
yeah. I like that.
There's something to knowing, having a checklist around, not only for you to know, like, hey, I'm covering all my bases, dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's,
Yeah,
to convert it into something meaningful, right? So
yeah,
I want to talk about that part of it, but then also on the back end, you host a successful open house and you get 10, 20, 30, 40 people in it.
yeah.
Back years ago when an open house would have tons and tons of people,
Oh yeah,
you also want to be set up properly to collect that information, collect the right information
yep,
to, and then plug and play them into your follow up system to actually stay top of mind and convert and make this whole ecosystem worthwhile.
yeah.
But let's unpack it one step at a time.
Okay.
You kind of already touched on this, but for those out there that are like, I want to host open houses, I just don't know where to start, walk us through, okay, JR, you're hosting an open house next weekend. What are you doing to prepare for it to get the most amount of people there? Not only, and also just like to mention another thing
Yeah.
around this concept. You're not only doing this to grow and scale your business, but you're ultimately doing it to help the homeowner, right?
Oh,
Sell
absolutely.
their house. So that's first and foremost. I just want to be clear
I
on
mean,
that.
that's the number one thing the agent has to remember is like your number one job there during an open house is to sell that house.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I
Yep.
mean, it's not to get buyers. Your number one job is to sell that house
Yep.
and everything. What you're banking on when generating leads from that is that house is not going to be for everybody.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and those are the people that you want to show your value to and your knowledge and experience and etc. So that you could potentially get them to use you as their agent.
Exactly.
So,
All right. So let's go back.
mhm,
You're hosting an open house next weekend.
yeah.
How far in advance do you start preparing, and what walk us through your checklist of what you do to get ready?
So number one thing is I make sure that the open house is marketed wherever it can be with plenty of time. Normally, I like to do it no. So if we're doing an open house on a Sunday, no later than Wednesday.
Hmm.
Because some of the research that we've done over the years shows that the buyers start looking at homes they want to visit over the weekend on a Wednesday.
Okay.
So Wednesday is the absolute latest you want to put all your marketing in for the open
To
house.
clarify, buyers are looking on Wednesday midweek, scheduling out their weekend, so they're not doing it last minute, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So, and you got to remember, like as much as our market has been crazy and everything, and yes, buyers will come in during the week and all that stuff, not everybody has that ability.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the buyers still rely on open houses to look at the properties. And one of the things that's really important, for agents to remember when it comes to an open house, a lot of the leads you get during an open house may be long-term leads. They may
Right.
not be immediate leads, because there's a lot of buyers who are trying to educate themselves by visiting open houses
Yeah.
and
Good point.
everything. And
Right.
to me, those are the best buyers you want to get, because they're the ones that will truly understand what we do as realtors. So
Okay.
the marketing goes in no later than Wednesday. Um, but somewhere on Tuesday is when I start looking at the property. So at the very latest Tuesday, I will try to, if I haven't been to the listing, if it's not my listing,
Mm-hmm.
I will go out to the property and visit it myself.
Okay.
So I can kind of familiarize myself with the house, with the neighborhood. One of the things that I will do is I will drive to a local grocery store, to the schools and everything. So I kind of have a general idea of what's where, and what schools does the property belong to, what the school ratings are, things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because those are the questions that are going to come up most likely during an open house. Somebody's going to ask you
I remember doing that too, hosting open houses in DC, in Washington, DC.
that.
I might botch this name, but there is a really good website. It was like Curbed Washington, DC or something like that,
Yeah.
where
Yes.
you could enter in whatever zip code or neighborhood, and then they would
Yeah.
have like a neighborhood profile. And I would use that in part of our, you know, getting
Yeah.
prepared for it to learn about the schools, grocery stores, because a lot of people come in, they don't know. Like they might
Yeah.
be coming in from Virginia or Maryland or wherever, California, and be like,
Yeah.
where's the closest grocery store? Can I walk to it? Can I drive to it? And
Yeah.
if you're like, I don't know, then they're like, cool, I'm going to go talk to an agent who
Who knows?
knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. So,
And
sorry to
especially in
sidetrack
DC,
that.
one of the things that was really, really big and known in DC were the farmers markets.
Yeah.
If you knew where the best farmers markets were, what days they run, and everything, you were a god
Yeah,
to people.
especially in an area like DC, it's different than the suburbs. Suburbs are a little
Yes.
bit different, but DC is like people want to, for the most part, move into a city to be able to walk and not have to
Yes.
drive. So that is very important for the people that are like not preparing and don't know that. That shows.
Yeah.
When someone asks you a question, you're clueless about those kind of things. It really hurts your ability to showcase yourself as a neighborhood expert.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So with the grocery stores, I always try to visit at least two or three and everything, just because people have different preferences. Like, as you know, we have like what, 6 or 7 different grocery store
Too
chains
many.
in DC
Yeah.
Metro, and
Right.
everything. Like, for me, Wegmans is end all be all things. You know what I mean? So I want to know where the nearest Wegmans is. If
Yeah.
somebody may want to know where the nearest Whole Foods is, something like that.
Right.
So and honestly, like, that can also be a difference whether somebody buys that house or not. Like, believe it or not, people do pick weird things like that.
Yep.
Um, so after having visited that, my next step will be pulling the relevant home sales for that neighborhood,
Okay.
and familiarizing myself with pricing and things like that. What the especially sometimes with some properties, I may go back as much as like a year or two, just so I can be able to answer that question. How has that neighborhood performed over the last few years?
Yeah.
Because you have buyers that it's one of the questions that I've been asked during an open house is like, hey, what if I buy this house? What can my expectations be like? 3 to 5 years down the road.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if I don't know the neighborhood, I will definitely do that research and everything just so I know it. It's easier now because, like you said, we've done hundreds of transactions up to this point.
Right.
So I have a really good general knowledge of the entire DMV. But if it's a specific neighborhood where I might not have done business, yeah, absolutely, I will pull that.
Yeah, one other thing that we did, actually two things. Number one, we looked at comps of solds, obviously, but
Yeah,
also what was active on the market in
yeah,
a radius. I think we did like 0.2 miles, 0.3 mile radius
yeah.
because in a place, again, we'll use DC. Going a little bit further can literally change neighborhood to neighborhood. So we did
Oh
point
yeah,
2 or point 0.3, and then what was under contract and how long it took to get under
yeah,
contract. Another kind of cool thing that we implemented, and we called it like our open house program, where we had like a playbook around what we did, kind of like what
yeah,
you're describing now. But for some of them, we would print a map of the neighborhood and we would do different pins or like little icons where the
Yeah,
schools were, and we'd like draw routes. And that was not only helpful for us because we had
yeah,
to learn wherever it was and we would kind of collect them and build a library of it, but also as a conversation starter. Because
absolutely.
as you know, sometimes it can be a little awkward or weird to just strike up a conversation with strangers coming into
Oh
the
yeah,
home. So it
especially
helps.
for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 6'9", I'm 315 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, like, people get so intimidated by me, so it's really hard. So like, I actually have to be extra mindful of my
Right.
facial expressions, my tone of voice, and everything. And I have a loud voice, so it carries. You know what I mean? So it can be really hard to strike up a conversation
Yeah.
sometimes, especially like, if a woman walks into the house and she's by herself and everything, like
Yeah.
I gotta like really go out of my way to make her feel comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good
So,
that you're mindful of that though, because honestly, there's some people out there that aren't, and it hurts them over time. So
oh yeah,
that kind of thing is very good. Self awareness will take you a long way there.
oh yeah, oh yeah. So but actually like that. We put in little pins and everything. That's actually a really cool thing. So the next thing after that, what I'll do is I'll pick one day where I will go and preview anything that's active in the area.
Yeah.
So I will preview homes and everything. So that way, the reason why I do that is if I'm talking to somebody during the open house, and let's say they say, I really like this house, but I'm really looking for this, for X, Y, and Z. Now I've previewed homes in the area. I know which home exactly may have that, and
Yeah.
I can say, hey, there's a home over on 123 Main Street that's currently active and everything that has that exact feature. Have you seen it before? Or
Yeah.
you haven't? How about that? Are you available 2 hours from now? I'll be happy to show it to you.
Yeah, you know what's better? I think that's great, but to take it a step further, that we used to love being able to say
Yeah.
is, I have what you're looking for. It's not currently on the market,
Ah,
but
yeah.
having access to those off markets also kind of helps solidify you as a neighborhood expert,
Oh
and
yeah.
granting access, it makes the prospect feel a little bit special, right?
Absolutely, and you know what? Actually, like since I joined Compass, like there's a tool that we actually have. They're called Compass exclusive listings. So
Yep.
there are listings that are under contract to be listed by Compass agents in the DMV, but they're not in the MLS. They're like, they may be 2, 3, 5 months from going on the
Yeah.
market,
Right.
but we have the database in our CRMs and everything in our tech platform where we can look at those. And one thing that I really like about Compass is unlike your traditional brokerages like KWs and everything, where each office is individually owned and operated. All the offices belong to Compass, so everything is connected.
Okay.
So if I'm in Arlington, I can see a listing in DC, or I can see the listing in Reston or in Ashburn. Listed by a Compass agent.
Hmm.
So one of the things that I've incorporated into our playbook is I also tell my agents, I'm like, make sure you know what's in the Compass exclusives.
Yeah.
I was like, because a lot of agents, you've heard a lot of teams, and everybody, oh, we have access to off-market properties.
Yeah.
Everybody has access to coming soon's in the MLS. Your average consumer doesn't know that.
Right.
But with Compass, I looked at it yesterday. There's currently over 2,600 Compass exclusive listings in the DMV. Yeah, I mean that is a ton of listings that I can get my
Yeah.
buyers into,
Yeah.
and everything like especially with what's going on in the market with Fed announcing the rates are going to go down 6 times next year and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be super competitive next year.
Yeah.
So
We'll come back to that point a little
yeah,
bit later. But
yeah,
yeah, I mean, having access to that is huge.
yeah.
Yeah.
So so like I said, so I'll pick one day to preview properties and everything. Um, you know, I'm not a big fan of knocking doors and everything. Not for an open house, and everything. But have I gotten listings that way? Yes, I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
I mean, so if the time allows, which I don't have an abundance of anymore these days, but a newer agent should have that time.
Yeah.
We'll knock the doors, I would say zero point 0.1 to 0.15 miles around the listing and let them know we're having an open house. We'd love for you to stop by and everything and give them a flyer for the open house. You know what I
That's
mean?
key. I was going to say, for agents who are able to do that, you
Yeah,
also want to take advantage of that time with whoever you're door knocking, right? And what we would always do, as well as in DC, there are a lot of row houses, obviously. If
yeah,
it wasn't a single family, but just out of a courtesy to the next door neighbors, we would let them
yes,
know, hey, you know what? We're going to be hosting an open house. hopefully we'll keep the noise down. Open houses don't tend to get out of control that way, but just giving them the common courtesy. But also when you're door knocking in that radius that you spoke of, hand them a flyer, hand them your business card, tell
Yeah,
them you know, ask them for their business. I don't,
yeah.
take
I
advantage
mean,
of that time
and
just in front of someone.
look, keep us in mind. Should you ever decide to move, or you know anybody in your neighborhood that's, or your friends or family that's looking to move, please keep us in mind. Because there was a stat that I used to love years ago. They said that 70% of homes sold in the DMV are sold to somebody who's already known somebody in their neighborhood or had known somebody in their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So like the best, the best. Okay, honey. Sorry.
All
Um,
good.
she wanted to say hi,
Tell
but
her I said hey.
so the best, so it's very important to establish that connection with people, because you may knock on somebody's door and they'll be like, oh, my sister's cousin or somebody I know, is looking to buy and they would love to live in this neighborhood and everything.
Yeah,
Now you've handed them a flyer to your listing, you've handed them your business card and everything. Guess what this person is going to do? They're going to call them and be like, hey, call this guy. There's a house to
exactly.
sell in my
Yeah.
neighborhood.
One of the first questions, other than a proper introduction and letting them know, would be, hey, JR, I'm Andrew Becker. I'm at this brokerage. We're hosting an open house at 123 Main Street.
Yeah,
Wanted to just let you know it's going to be from 1 to 3 today. Hopefully, traffic won't impede your ability to do whatever you're doing this
right.
weekend. Also, it's a great home. You spit some little statistics about it. Do you
Yep,
happen to know anyone that's moving into the neighborhood? Any of your friends looking for a great property 2 doors down from you, around
yeah.
the block from you? A great conversation starter. And then you can also be like, how long have you lived here? Depending on your time, how much time you have.
Oh
But
yeah,
good way to
absolutely.
get
I'll
in
give you
front
a
of people.
prime example. When we come back from El Salvador, we're trying to figure out where we're going to live, because our house in Alexandria, while it's a great house, great location, schools are terrible. My kids are going to, my daughter's going to be going to get into first grade. So, we have friends. I helped them buy their house in 16th Street Heights up in Northwest DC, and they love their neighborhood. They love the schools and everything. So, like, prime example, like I'm going to tell Heather, hey, when you're talking to all your friends, like if anybody's thinking about selling their house, like you have a buyer, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Off
call
market.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So that's you're absolutely right. That's it's very important to speak to, be like, do you know somebody looking to move and everything? Because bottom line is like, here's a line that I've used pretty much since the beginning of my career. You know, Before asking that question, what's the worst that can happen? Is they'll say, no, I don't know anybody that's looking
Right.
to move.
Yeah.
Are you any worse off than you were before asking that question? You're
No.
not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like when people are like, oh, how do I ask strangers for business? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? They'll say no.
And you're in the same position you were 10 seconds before that.
Exactly.
But
You
at
only
least you're
have a
getting out
question.
there. I agree. At least you're getting out there. You're taking chances, you're taking risks, but you're also getting out there and meeting people, which is also, there's so many angles we can talk about
Yeah.
for this particular scenario that we're kind of talking about right now. But also, you're getting your branding out there. You're getting
Yes.
your name out there, which is important in real estate. People want to see that, you know,
Yeah.
JR is hosting a bunch of open houses in my neighborhood. So when the timing is right, and a lot of it's luck, timing, staying in front of them, right?
Yep.
But you're top of mind. That's the key in all of this. You mentioned earlier, most of the people, they're lookers, they're tire kickers, they're not ready, whatever the variable is. As long as you have made that first touch and continue to touch them, as long as you're giving them good content and they're seeing you grow your business, right? They're going to
Yep.
see you as a market expert, neighborhood expert, and who do you think they're going to call?
Yeah.
You that's been following up or touching them in some shape or form for the last 2 years, or the person they met once that they don't even know,
Yeah.
their name.
I mean, and I'll go even a step further than that. One of the things that the agents always get disappointed. They're like, oh man, everybody that came through the house, had an agent. I'm like, okay. I was like, I can't tell you. I probably closed 7 or 8 deals in my career from an open house client that I met who already had an agent. And they literally like picked up my business card from the table, called me afterwards, and they said, look, we had our agent, but we worked with him for a while and we just didn't feel like he had the knowledge that you do. Would you be open to working with us?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I didn't steal anybody's clients or anything like that, but just me being me made the client feel more comfortable. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Or just they felt like I had a lot more knowledge than their current agent. And I mean, and that happens all the time. When we have people that call into for our marketing and everything, they call in and they'll be like, yeah, I've had an agent that, they've been sending me properties for like, 6 months and everything. And I'm like, when I hear that, man, my stomach cringes because I'm
Right.
like, 6 months and you haven't bought a house? Like, that just doesn't sound right. You
Right.
know what I mean? So that, and it's one of the things that I coach my ISA on because he's like, hey, he used to do this thing that used to drive me insane. He'd be like, hey, I spoke with this client, they just want us to send them, properties through the MLS.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're not going to do that. I
Yeah.
was like, they need to meet with us. And, and I sat him down and I explained to him, I was like, we separate ourselves from the pack when we sit down and we talk to the client. We get their criteria. We know what their must-haves, what their needs, what their wants are, and everything. Whether everything that we could possibly know about that client makes it easier for us to find them a house. I was like, I can set any trained monkey can set a client on automatic search in the MLS. And
Right.
you know this. If you set up an automatic search in the MLS, that client may get 100, 200 listings at any given time.
But what's
How
that
many
going
of those are
to
going to
say
fit what
to
they
that?
need?
Yeah, what's that going to say to the client? I always hated doing that also because if we were working together and I was your client and you just kept sending me, sending me, sending me, there came a point where I'm like, they're going to feel like, whether this was real or not, that I don't have a clue for what they're looking for or what
Yep.
their personal goals are. And I think you hit the nail on the head right there. That's when you either, like, there are some people all the time just said, set me up with 500 to 700K in this neighborhood, whatever, I don't care, just send it to me, and then you never hear from them again, right?
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
take the time, you put in the time, effort, and show that personal touch to really understand, like, maybe I want a pool, maybe I
Right.
didn't tell you that at first, so I'm sending you all these houses without a pool, and then I'm like, dude, JR has no clue, like, delete
Exactly.
or unsubscribe, never talk to him again.
Yeah.
So that's the importance of kind of like setting yourself up for success, but not only that, but proper expectations too with
Yeah.
whoever you're communicating with, right? So that's a very, very important piece that I think a lot of agents potentially don't invest the time in doing just that. Really understanding, and instead of sending you 100, maybe I'm
Yeah.
sending you 10. Like, you can't make
And out
any
of those 10,
top five.
7. So I always like to make a joke out of it because I like to tell my clients, I want to make this decision hard for you. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I want you to look at the stuff I send you. I want you to feel like, oh my God, like I love these 5 homes. I can't decide which one I want.
Right, exactly.
I was like, I want them. That's what I want. I
Yeah.
want. I want you to have a difficult time deciding which house you want to get. Not like, oh, this is the one, and this is the only one I'm ever going to find.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's about like seriously listening to the client, seriously understanding what they're about. You know what I mean? And I always told agents, whenever I did any kind of training or anything like that, I always told agents on average, my clients buy one of the first 5 houses I show them.
And
That's
that's probably gone on a limb by design
it is.
because of your efficiencies of being in the business for so long.
It's
Early,
not necessarily about that. It's about doing the legwork up front.
well, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
you have enough knowledge and experience to meet with me, your client, who's a buyer, to
yeah,
say, hey, I'm not going to show you 50 houses and you might like one. You're going to say, hey, this is important for me to have a really crystal clear understanding. Together, we'll talk this out. So I only show you the ones that really check all the boxes.
exactly,
So that's
exactly.
how you're able to do that level of customer service, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like when agents tell me, like, "Oh, I showed this client like 30 houses," I'm like, "You're doing something wrong."
Yeah.
I mean, the buyer that I just mentioned earlier that I told you, they're closing on the 21st. We've only showed them one house.
Yeah.
The very first house they walked in, they literally like walked out there, called me super excited, said, JR, this is it. I want to make an offer. I wasn't even there. Like I had one of my agents show them the houses. I'm paying him for it and everything. I told him, I was like, I'll handle everything for you. I was like, I don't need to physically be there.
Yeah.
I was like, home inspections and everything, I'll schedule all that for you. I was like, Randy's just going to be there, open doors. They were like, cool, that works for us and everything. But, I talked to them like 2 or 3 times prior to them going out to see properties. I set the expectations right, just like you said. and everything. So literally, when they walked into that first house, I mean, they walked out and they were like, "JR, this house is beautiful. Like, what can we do?" And literally, he so he was prepared to go, like, we needed to get him at least 15,000 in closing costs. He was prepared to write at 515 to get the 15. I was like, house was listed at 500. I was like, nah. I was like, we're gonna write the full asking price and we're gonna ask for closing costs. So the agent came back. She was like, yeah, they're balking a little bit at the closing costs. What do you think? I was like, I was like, well, I was like, my clients really need it. How about if we did 508? With 3%. And she was like,
Hmm.
yeah. She was like, she got really excited. She was like, yeah, I think they'll go for that. So she called me back. So I saved my clients about $8,000-9,000 there. Top it all off. We got the appraisal back last night. House appraised for 510.
Nice. Awesome.
So they walked in with some equity, but it all comes down to being prepared. We talked about open houses and everything, but it's just doing that legwork, making understanding. So let's go back to the open house.
Yeah.
So when you're there, we got to the open house, we're hosting it and everything. That you got to be able to talk to people, and sometimes it's hard. I mean, you and I both had open houses. We had like 40, 50 people come through
Right.
and everything. But you'll have open house where you'll have 3 people come through.
Yeah.
You got to make the best out of your time there. So you got to talk to the people and everything. You got to ask the questions. You ask the open-ended questions. You say, what are you looking for? How long have you been looking? you
Right.
know what is your timeline for your move? Have you spoken to a lender yet? What's your budget? Usually, like, when you ask what's your budget, and they're like, oh, it's 700,000. Have you spoken to the lender? Well, no, I haven't. Well, how did you come up with a budget?
Right.
You
That's
know what
the
I mean?
first step of really understanding where they are in the buying process as well. Because
Exactly.
most really sincere buyers may have already talked to a lender and are ready to go.
Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about that though. You mentioned like needing to talk to people, and we
Yeah.
had, we had broached the subject of like making sure it's the best use of your time, the homeowner's time, getting people in to see their home and ultimately selling. But
Yeah.
also, you want to make the best use of the people you meet's time, right? But
Yeah.
how are you? Do you have a system for? Because I remember some open houses we had very little people. It's
Yeah.
just rained and you couldn't cancel it and no one showed up. Some open houses it was almost overwhelming just being by myself when 20 people at the same time walk in, but you want to be able to give people the proper amount of attention and collect their information, right? So you
Yeah.
do have the means to follow up. Did you have a system in place for that part of it? So getting people's names, phone numbers, and emails so you could
Absolutely.
follow up?
Absolutely. I'm actually. I'm starting to think about it. I've ran into a program recently that I want to kind of experiment with, which works off of QR codes
Yeah.
and everything. So that's something that I might try out in the future. But like when I first started in the business, we had a sign-in book. You know what I mean? As the things have gotten progressed and gotten better, we use iPads now with Open House Pro and everything. It's
We
super
use
easy.
that too. Yeah. Yeah.
Super easy to sign in, and it's connected to our CRM, so it automatically just uploads all the leads in there,
Yep.
which automatically connects them with our follow-up systems and everything. So it's all automated, makes
Right.
your life a hell of a lot easier. You know what I mean? So if I'm having a slow open house, I'll approach them with the iPad and everything, and I'll be like, hey, welcome. My name is JR. Blah blah blah. You know, we're happy to have you here. Do you mind signing in real quick? It's owner's request. They want us to know everybody that's coming in to sign in.
Right.
When you say it like that, 99% of the time they won't have an issue
Yep.
signing
Yep.
in. So if it's a slower open house, I may just ask them for the information and input it myself
Okay.
and everything. And I use that, for, because a lot of times I'll use it to connect with them on something like, me being from Eastern Europe and everything. If they have like an interesting name and everything, I'll from some other part of the world, I'll use that as a conversation starter or something like that. You know what I mean? Because it will give you some of the information that you seek. You
Yep.
know what I mean? If it's a really, really busy open house, I will just, I try to make sure that I welcome everybody that walks in the door
Hmm.
and ask them to sign in right then and there. And what I'll do at that point, when it's really busy, I'll explain, like, look, as you can tell, we have a lot of people here. Please take a look around and everything. I'll be with you momentarily as soon as I get a second. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please come right back to me. I'm more than happy
Yep.
to assist you and everything. I was like, but I don't want to sit on top of you and everything. Just look around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like to give people a certain level of freedom. Because one thing that I hate, I always compare this open houses to this. If you ever been to a car dealership to buy a car, the second you open your door to your car to walk
I
out,
know.
there's
Right.
five guys hovering over you,
Yeah.
and I hate that.
Yeah. But it's good, I think, to establish yourself as the professional there. The
Yeah,
homeowners would probably enjoy hearing that. And it's just a professional thing to do, in my opinion.
exactly,
Hey,
exactly.
welcome. The last thing, like, even before I was in real estate, I remember, like, I'd go around with my parents and I'd walk in and no one was there to greet you.
Yeah,
Or there was an agent there and they kind of just like hung out in the kitchen and it was awkward,
yeah,
right? It was weird. So there is something to a kind, open, warm greeting, which in
yeah,
turn would hopefully, everyone's different. Some people are more open than others, but that sort of leads into that start of the relationship, and they're more open to kind of giving you their history and their backstory and their
yeah.
goals for what they're trying to do there.
And what I like to do, honestly, like each house may have some unique feature that and I'll use that as a conversation starter and everything to make sure I highlight that. So,
Yep.
like for example, let's say they just renovated their kitchen and they have Milo appliances or Viking appliances or something like that, and I'll be like, they have a really really cool kitchen with cool stove and everything. Go check it out. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right. Right.
Something like that. Or I may point, they may point out. I'll be like, hey, they have a brand new deck and everything. It has an amazing view. Go check it out.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, something like that, use something as a conversation starter, but at the same time, you're highlighting something about the house that the seller is very proud of, that
Mhm.
they want to make sure every potential buyer knows. Because,
Yeah.
99% of the time you go to a listing appointment, they're like, oh, we just put new windows and a roof, and they think that that's going to increase the value of the house. Well, no, sorry. Like, those are things that are supposed to be there and supposed to work and
Yeah.
everything. It's going to increase the sellability of the house, not necessarily the value.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I try to make sure that, I help out my sellers in a way of highlighting some of the things that they've done, they put the blood, sweat, and tears into.
Yeah, I like that. Just a quick side question. I think you mentioned this before, but when you run an open house, do you do printed flyers for every single one,
I
branded?
don't.
You
I
don't?
don't anymore.
Okay,
I do electronic flyers and everything because that ensures that I get a correct email address.
gotcha. Okay, and then just going back to the Open Home Pro app, we use that. I haven't done an open house in like 5 years, but I remember. So Open Home Pro is great, and they're different tech products, but
Oh yeah,
I'm really into tech and efficiency and automation. One of the
yeah,
cool things for the people kind of wondering what that might be is Open Home Pro is a program where you can go in and say, "Hey, I'm hosting a new open house at 123 Main Street." You can
oh,
upload your contact information, brand it, kind of set it up to be unique to you, and then
yeah,
add photos, add interesting bullet points around, like, they just put in a sauna or great view in the backyard.
exactly.
And then when you do connect that or collect that information, and you can also set the different criteria of what questions you ask, right? So you,
Yes,
you can say, I just want name, email, and phone number, or name, email, phone number. Are you working with a lender? Are you working with an agent? Are you doing
yeah,
this? Are you doing that? So there's varying degrees of what questions you want to ask. But the
yeah,
really cool part, JR, for us was when you did collect the name and the email, it would send it directly into our CRM.
yeah,
But instantaneously, it would email them and say, thank you for coming to the open house at 123 Main
yeah,
Street. In case you need it, here's all the information. And then there's a call to action that said to schedule a one on one call or in person, click here. So that having that level of efficiency would allow you to, especially in high volume, um, situations where a lot of people are coming in, that
yeah,
is how you take advantage of collecting people's information and getting them that information in real time,
yeah.
which just adds to that ecosystem of
So
that your
those are the-
ecosystem of your open house program,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. No, I mean, Open House Pro is like one of the best programs I've used. So you want to say hi? Come on, come say hi since you're here. Nope. Oh, here she comes. Come on, come say hi.
Hello. Wow. I love your skeleton. Is that a Halloween costume?
No, that's her PJs.
Oh, okay. You scared me for a second.
Yeah, mommy got diagnosed with COVID yesterday, so we're
Uh-oh. So who is this?
This is my daughter, Farah.
Hey,
This is
Farah. Nice to meet you. I'm Andrew. I'm talking to your dad about real estate and open houses.
yeah. One day she's gonna be a real estate agent too. Maybe.
Yeah.
All right, honey, come on. I'm gonna put you outside. Let's see. Where's mommy and Luca? Go find mommy and Luca. All right, I locked the door.
All good. All good.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, open houses are a great way, even if you have paid lead gen, if you have a
Oh
pipeline
yeah.
already, and you're just like, I want to go out and meet more
I mean,
people.
let's be honest. You can never have enough leads.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, one of the things I love about being in the real estate industry when I was in sales was meeting interesting, nice, friendly
Oh
people
yeah.
around where we are. It's fun. I mean, it beats to me personally. It beat like a desk job. Although I had jobs before and I love the people I work with.
Yeah.
There's something to literally every single day you could meet five new people that you would have never met in your
Yeah.
entire life by simply saying, hey, I want to be a little bit proactive this weekend and go host an open house on Saturday, host an open house on Sunday. That's just how you snowball your business.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, open houses. If you're a new agent starting out, easiest way to generate business.
No.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we kind of talked about, the inception or the start of the open house planning, hosting an open house and getting their contact information. But there's a lot to collecting information, getting names, numbers, and emails, and
Yeah.
then touching them for long periods of time. Talk about that. How are you doing that successfully?
So, to be honest with you, a lot of my stuff, a lot of our team stuff is automated. We work with, our CRM is Follow Up Boss. So Open House Pro uploads all the contact information directly in Follow Up Boss. And one of the first email that goes, "Hey, thank you for stopping by this open house. Here's the information. You
Mm-hmm.
know, contact us for one-on-one consultation and everything." And then each lead, so I have it set up automatically. Each lead that comes from an open house gets a automated email follow up, and everything. I think it's somewhere of like 10 or 11 template emails that goes out to them
Okay.
and touches them at a certain period of time. You know, um, each agent on my team is responsible for following up with them, and
Mm-hmm.
some of the agents, as you know, this will be like, well, they're not answering the phone. I was like, okay, keep calling.
Right.
You call until they pick up the phone and tell you to go to hell and stop calling,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you just keep trying, and you keep calling them. One thing that I love about Follow Up Boss, it has a task set up, so you set up a task for yourself. When you want to call the client and touch base with them. The cool thing that one thing that I'm really big on is if I call a client, they don't answer, leave a voicemail. We send a text message, we send an email. So
Mm-hmm.
we do all three each time we touch.
Yeah.
If we feel it's a lead that if it's a hot lead, meaning they're 3 to 6 months, we try to touch them at least once every 2 weeks.
Okay.
Sometimes some of the leads, if they're like 3 months or under, I will touch them every week.
Okay.
It's really that simple. If they're 6 months or more, we try to touch them at least once a month.
Okay.
You know,
So you have different
so
cadences dependent on. It sounds like the you're using time frame as their
yeah,
urgency or how hot or cold they are, right?
exactly. So and a lot of the times you have to use your best judgment because somebody may say they're 6 months out, right? But there may be 6 months out because of something they generated in their own mind that's not necessarily true
Right.
and everything. And that their timeline is really more like 2 months and everything. At which point it's your job as an agent to create that sense of urgency with them. So
Mm-hmm.
like I have one client, I was working with her before I left and everything. She's very adamant about staying around a certain price point, monthly payment point. The problem was when the interest rates started shooting up and everything, it was getting really hard to find her exactly what she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So as I left, I had to pass her off to one of my agents. Now that I'm here, I was talking to one of my agents, and actually the team meeting, talking about what's going on with the interest rate and everything, and creating the sense of urgency with the buyers right now, because right now you can negotiate, right now you can get credits, right now you can get repairs. I give it 4 months, you're not going to be able to do that. because you're
Talk
going to be
about what you
competing.
mean by that. So we touched on this a
Yeah,
little early on in this conversation, but I'm well aware just from being in the
yeah,
industry. The Fed. So the backstory is the Fed just announced in 2024 they're going to take six. No one knows how much or when, right? But
yeah.
six different cuts.
Six
So
different cuts.
how are you handling this conversation now and work us up to the point, crystal ball, the Fed made the six cuts. What do you see happening?
So honestly, what I'm preparing my team for is I'm preparing it for 2020 and 2021 all over again.
What do you
Where
mean by that for those who
the
don't know?
interest rates were so low that we had so many people jumping into the market, and back then because of the pandemic, we didn't have any inventory. As you're well aware, I think we have in DC right now we have like what 3 months worth of inventory at the
Right.
most at
Yeah,
any given
it's
time.
the lowest. Yeah, it's been low for quite some time.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and the problem for that is people that are like me. I refinanced my house in December of 2021.
Mhm.
My interest rate is 2.875.
Yeah.
I'm not selling that house. Like,
I'm in a
yeah,
similar situation. I bought in February of 2021. I'll beat you. I got a
yeah,
2.75 interest rate,
nice.
and I'm not moving.
Yeah,
Like I love my house, but that is also
yeah. I mean,
a,
I may buy another house, but I will not sell my house because, like, I'll be honest with you. Now that I'm in El Salvador right now, my house, I have a house and a guest house. So I kept the guest house for myself.
Mhm.
But whenever I come back, I have a place to stay. So I rented out my main house, and I'm renting it out for $550 more per month than what my mortgage payment is.
Cool.
Why would I want to sell? You
Right.
know what I mean? So a majority of the people in DC Metro have done the same thing. So our inventory levels are going to continue. The prediction is they're going to continue to stay low for quite some time. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? People are not going to move until they absolutely have to.
That's a key. Like me and you,
Yeah,
I'm not moving because I don't need to. You're not moving because you don't need to. What is on the market today, for the most part, is people that absolutely have to sell for whatever. There's a million different reasons,
yeah,
but they're forced to move for their own reason, right?
exactly,
Right.
exactly. So with the announced rate cuts next year. So I actually I'm a little bit of an economy nerd and everything, so I follow this stuff and I study it. You know the estimation right now is that there's about 5 million buyers in the United States that are currently sitting on the sidelines
Mhm.
waiting for the rates to go down. Now we're not going to see the rates go back down to 3% and below. Those days are long gone. If those days come back, we're in a serious trouble as a country. Period. But I would anticipate seeing the rates sometime in 2024. I would anticipate them hitting mid fives, so about 5.5 to 5.75. If that happens, if the second the rates hit below 6, everybody's going to rush into the market. So
So what does
one
that mean for your sellers?
for the sellers, great. You're going to be getting top dollar for your house with very little to no contingencies. So
Potentially bidding wars, waived
bidding wars,
fees,
yep.
right?
So what
Closing.
I'm telling my sellers, be ready. Starting like late February, early March, be ready from that point on. I would say until like mid July, it's going to be crazy.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
So what are you
that's
telling
going
your
to,
current buyers though?
with my current buyers, I'm telling them buy now.
Why?
Let's go out and find, because we can still find you a great home.
Mhm.
We'll be able to negotiate a deal for you. You'll be able to do your home inspections and everything. You won't be buying blind. It's very simple. 6 months from now, rates drop, refinance. You're
Right.
not losing any money. 99% of the time, you can roll your closing costs into the refinance and
Right.
everything, and you're going to end up saving more money, because when the time comes and the interest rates start going down, you're going to be competing with 4, 5, 7. Like the most, I had one house that had 27 offers.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
remember those days. Yeah.
I had a spreadsheet that I had to just write down every offer.
Yeah,
Like
we had that too. We were like, how are we going to manage all this? And we built a template
yeah,
spreadsheet, literally like offer number, priority number, this, and it was literally like 30, 40 offers on. I remember how crazy that
it was
was.
crazy. It was crazy. So, I mean, at that point, what a lot of people don't realize, and it's really like that simple. So, like, let's say you buy now and you have 7% interest rate, and let's say over 30 years, the difference between 7 and 6%, let's say it's $80,000,
Right.
right? Over 30 years. Would you rather buy that and maybe refinance down the road, save maybe like $30,000, $40,000? Let's say you don't save the entire 80. Or
Mhm.
would you rather wait 6 months from now, have to buy where you're taking $50,000 of that 80, having to put it upfront in cash just to win the house.
Yep.
You're not doing any home inspections. You're not getting any contingencies.
Right.
You're taking a huge risk
Yep.
and everything, on everything that could potentially go wrong when you could have spread that money over the years and had that liquidity in your pocket.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just, to me, it really doesn't make sense. It was one of the reasons, my wife and I looked at some houses. We thought about potentially moving to Arlington for a while, and I just did not want to compete. I mean, I thought Arlington prices were just ridiculously crazy through the roof.
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to put that money up front. I'd rather pay, down the road, pay a higher interest rate and
Yeah.
everything, but be able to feel more secure into my purchase.
Yeah.
So what I told my team, I was like, what we have to do now is create, be very transparent with our clients, explain to them what they're going on. A lot of the times, agents look at our job, incorrectly. I feel like my job, the description of my job is to educate my clients
Mm-hmm.
with my knowledge and my experience so they can make the best financial decision for themselves.
Right. Yeah.
It's not my job to make the decision for them. My job is to give them all the tools so they can make that decision.
Exactly.
So, I sit down, I explain to my clients, we have a spreadsheet where I will show them, like, here's how much a difference in an interest rate will make.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and there's a special reason why I do that right now, because, you have buyers who are like, one of my agents just struggled with that. They lost on a multiple offer situation in Southwest DC because her client, she wanted a deal. She's from Argentina. She wanted a deal, and she offered, below asking price. And I was telling my agent, that they offered houses at 735. They offered 715. I was like, $20,000 on her monthly payment is less than $100.
Right.
I was like, where if you would have written a full price offer with, say, 15,000 in closing costs, would have actually saved her $15,000 cash right now.
Yeah. There's
You know what I mean? Or she could have used that credit to buy the rate down and save even more money.
Exactly. That is where your experience really comes into play, because on paper or just in your mind when you're thinking about that, oh, I need
Yeah.
to save off the price, not thinking around like the other options that you just described that can save you 5x, 10x sometimes in the amount of interest, in the amount of, in the rate buy down. That is where an experienced agent is 100% worth it for that buyer.
Here's the thing that a lot of agents make a mistake with that. A lot of agents will talk to their clients and try to explain this and make them understand. For somebody who's not in our industry or not dealing with interest rates and something like that on a daily basis, they will never understand this. And I learned this by being married to my wife. My wife is one of the people that's very visual. So when I explain stuff like this to her, I literally will put math on the paper and I will show them the difference.
Right.
So I've done that with the clients. That's why I have the spreadsheet where, I'll be like, okay, here is, if we negotiate the price down 20K, here's what this looks like. If we get your credit and we save you, you use that credit towards your closing costs, this is what that looks like.
Right.
Here's, if we take that credit and we use the rate buy down and we buy a rate, here's now what your payment looks like. Which one of these looks the best to you?
Yep.
And you let them make the decision.
Yeah.
Because if after all that they still want to knock off $20,000 off the price, by all means. You know what I mean? I will write the offer the way you want it. I'll prepare you. You're most likely not going to get it and everything. But, I give my clients an option.
Yep. Yeah.
So right now, just with everything we're seeing, we're preparing for a very, very busy market. I have, my agents are working with a lot of buyers, and I'm just telling them, be out showing homes. Right now, you need to be out showing homes, finding properties, negotiating deals.
Yeah.
Because just negotiating, it's not going to happen. We're going to have to pivot and prepare clients that, for everything that's coming down the road.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, and it's going to happen. We've seen it before. We're going to see it again. We're already seeing a little bit. I mean, you saw over the past few weeks, the rates have dropped down to like 7.3, and everything. So we're already seeing a lot more movement in the market than we did even a month ago.
Yeah, it's definitely starting to shift. I kind of share in your same, outlook on what's about to happen. Home prices are going to start to soar.
Yeah.
Especially in the DC area. Of course, it's different in every location you're in, but DC has always kind of been an outlier, in my opinion. home prices don't necessarily drop drastically like they do in Vegas or some Austin or other locations, and we've remained relatively flat or consistent, right?
Yeah,
But I kind of see the writing on the wall. Rates are going to come down, buyers are going to come out, sellers are going to start saying, "Oh, the house across the street just sold for 100K above.
yeah,
Now we'll move." They were sitting on it, but then they're going to start seeing it, and it's just going to get more and
yeah.
more momentum, more and
It's
more.
got to get to a point where the sellers may be like, I've been thinking about it and everything, but I'm seeing all this craziness again. I'm
And
going to
this
take
will
it.
be the catalyst that'll turn there from I'm thinking about it into, hey, I'm ready to actually go and list my property now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's and honestly, for agents and teams, listings are going to be worth their weight in gold and everything. So, like, my team, we're really focused on expireds right now
Yeah.
and everything because these are the people that have been promised a certain price and have been disappointed and everything. So, and I'm not afraid to have these tough conversations with them and
Hmm.
everything. I'm also preparing them. I'm like, look, if you're able to wait a few months, I think we're gonna be able to get you really close or above the number that you really want,
Right.
based on what's coming down the road. So like I have a client, it was an expired, it's a beautiful man, one of the most beautiful properties I've ever had. It's down in Hughesville, Maryland, 5 acre lot, fully fenced in, 5,000 square foot house with an indoor pool and everything. But what my client had done, he turned one of his garages into a guest house. Didn't
Oh,
pull the permits. Had him under contract and everything. And the buyer's daughter went to the county, and the county got involved. So now we lost the contract. He was like, "JR, let's take it off the market.
hmm.
I'll work with this. He's a contractor. I'll get all these permits pulled. We'll take care of it." He was like, "We'll put it back in the market in the spring." And I actually think it's better for him because I think we're getting more money for that property.
Yeah, potentially. I was going to say that might actually work in your favor. I'm guessing what the C of O didn't get pulled, or
Yeah, so actually, Charles County has this weird zoning uh, law that where basically that secondary housing is, as of right now, it's only allowed to be 50% of it is allowed to be used for living purposes. 50% has to be auxiliary. Because he should turn it to 100% living, he has to change the zoning on the property.
gotcha.
And
Okay.
then also what happened was when he bought the property, here's a perfect example of having a good agent. When he bought the property, his agent didn't get him to do a septic inspection.
Hmm.
So guess what happened when we got under contract? Needs a new septic.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, Jerry," he was like, "I've never had any problems with it." I was like, "Mario, you've lived in the house by yourself for the past 3 years." I was like, "You're not gonna have any issues because you're
Yeah.
not putting out that much
Yeah.
waste and everything." So what I mean. So he put a new septic in. They're getting stuff done and everything. But I mean, somebody like him, I actually think it's going to work out better for him because I think we'll get more money.
Yeah. You might be right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But we're really I'm personally focusing on like getting as many leads, as many potential sellers in our database and everything. I don't care if they're ready to go right now or not. I'm making those conversations with them, almost on a daily basis, just so that my team can be on top of their mind when the time comes.
Yeah.
You know that they're it doesn't matter if they're selling now or 6 months from now or a year from now. They're going to call the person that's been in touch with them the most.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Well, this has been an awesome conversation. It sort of morphed into an open house seminar, I think, where we
oh
went
yeah,
really deep.
absolutely.
So hopefully, people find some, you know, what they catch, one or two things to really help them run an efficient open house. I'm curious. I have a really good example. So maybe I can tell you my example while
Yeah.
you're thinking of yours. But what's the funniest, craziest thing that has happened to you in an open?
Oh my God. I
I
mean,
have a good one. So
go
we're
ahead.
in Burke, Virginia. What we thought was a nice price, like a good price house, and it wound up selling for above ask. So I
Yeah.
know it was. This guy came in, and the owner was like, have people remove their shoes. They want to keep it clean. And we're like, hey, welcome. Can you please take your shoes off? And he beelined it for the basement, went into the basement, came back up and said, the basement's not finished. This house is overpriced. And then beelined it out the front door in all within like 30 seconds. But he was like really intense. And I remember it was like raining and he had like one of those trench coats.
Yeah.
So he didn't even take that off, just like straight to the basement, came up, told us the house was overpriced, and then left. And we were like,
Oh,
and I
busy.
was with my business partner at the time, Dan, and we
Yeah,
were like, what? What was that? What just
yeah.
happened? Like, who was that guy?
Oh man. I think probably the craziest thing I had was a wife caught a husband with his mistress at the same open house, and
Ooh.
it blew up into a full blown argument.
Oh
You know,
wow, that is pretty nuts.
in front of everybody, and I literally was like, "Look," I was like, "I don't care if you guys kill each other, but you're gonna have to do it outside." I was like, "Please take it outside." So
Yeah,
like, they eventually did, but it was just like one of those things. So the husband came in with this woman first, and they were looking around and everything. So the wife came in second, and everything, and the husband comes down the stairs with his mistress. She's in the main level, and they saw each other, and she just went nuts.
yikes.
I mean,
Well, that
it
is
was
a
crazy.
conversation for another time, but that is
Yeah,
pretty crazy. That
yeah,
that beats mine.
yeah. That was one of the wildest things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So
Well, cool, man. Well, JR, really appreciate your time. I know you do still, although you're in where you are now
yeah,
geographically, you still run and operate a team up here.
yeah.
So, if there is anyone listening that wants to get in touch with you, and we'll include this in the description in the episode, but how would one find you to, talk real estate?
It's very simple. They can go to our website. It's www.threelionhomes.com. It's spelled out. They can reach out to me directly on my phone at 202-596-0204. I'm available anytime. We're actually pretty much in the same time zone. I think time difference between me and DC is 1 hour.
Okay. Cool.
So they can, if they go to the website, they can, register on there. It will be sent directly to me, or call me literally anytime, or shoot me an email, jr@threelionhomes.com. So
Three
we're,
Lion Homes, like the animal.com.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Three Lion
Awesome.
Homes. Came up with that after my daughter was born. So
Awesome. Cool.
she was the third lion.
Nice. I love that. I love that. But yeah, man. Um, we just a little background on you and me. We
Yeah,
met in 2014, 2015 at
yeah,
KW. It's been a long time since we've seen each other, especially in
yeah.
person, but always a great time talking real estate with
Likewise.
you. And I, again, thank you so much for your time and being on the show.
Anytime, man. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care,
Let's see
man.
you.
Bye.
All right.